Hello, everyone. Today, I am so excited to be talking to Kaare Andrews, amazing comic writer, amazing artist, amazing filmmaker, friend.
Hey,
Hello. How's it
how's it
going?
going? Good, good.
Good. It's so good to see you.
Yeah, yeah. It's
It's been,
this Instagram thing is still pretty weird. It's pretty weird and new to me. So
I know, me too. Me too. Got to run towards the things that scare us, though. And,
yeah, that's right.
we're live talking, catching up. It's been, we actually met not through comics, well, kind of comic adjacent. We worked on a television series together called
Based
V
off the comic.
Wars,
Yeah,
based off comic, and had like a really great time. A lot of night shoots, as
vampire
I
show.
recall. Yeah.
Gotta shoot at night.
That's right. That's right. And then I then got to know you a little bit more from your work in comics
From
and
your working comics, as
from
you
your
as you waded into my second other side of my life, the comic book side.
yeah. So it's really great. Just for people watching, I when I first started talking to Allison about turning the Unity into a comic, which is now Reborn, the first person I called was Kaare because we had had such a good time working together, and I just really respected his work in the comic space, and I really loved what he was doing, and he was very generous with his time and shared a lot of really great and key info that helped us move forward and not feel so intimidated by this space because it's pretty intimidating.
It's a weird space. It's very unique and very it's a very signature space, I would call it. Highly creative,
Yeah.
a lot of weird little things about it, a lot of weird little ticks. It's very boutique, but once you're in it, you find it's very creative and fulfilling, and it's very addictive, and especially coming from the film space, where the film space is so like
Right.
ossified, or TV space too. Everything is such a big machine. It takes a lot to get things going. Comics are so nimble and fast and quick. It's very
Yeah.
rewarding.
How did you get your start in comics?
Well, I got my start in comics um, basically by the old school traditional way, before kind of pre-internet. The internet was around a little bit, but just sending off samples through mail to editors and going to conventions back before conventions were movie conventions, when they were still
Right.
actually comic book conventions. Now they call them comic book conventions, but they're actually more movie or pop culture conventions. And just sending off samples and meeting people. And I got my first job as a penciler and immediately started asking to write. And so I broke in as a writer, penciler within the same year at Marvel, I believe. So I got my first job at Marvel, and then if you can draw well enough, you can leverage your art talent to get you the writing opportunity, and then if you do well, then you get more. So that's kind of how it works.
Do you have one that you prefer over the other, writing versus drawing?
No, because I look at it as kind of I think the way Bruce Lee looked at martial arts. They're all different forms of the same combat. So
Mm.
when I'm drawing, I'm writing with art, and what I'm writing to become drawings. So it's all part of the same process. So I don't look at things individually, but I still like collaborating. So when I collaborate with a writer, it's actually a bit of a psychological experiment where I try to uncover not what they wrote on the page, but what what they're asking to manifest. So I'll write underneath their words to try to, because if they could draw it themselves, they would. So they can't. So I need to get them to a place where they can't go. So but then when I'm directing, I feel the same way. I'm analyzing the script. I'm not trying to replicate the script word for word, but I'm trying to get underneath what people are trying to manifest, and I'm trying to, like, you know do more. Like, I want, do more than what's happening. It's like
Absolutely.
a great actor, right? This a great actor won't just recite the words the way you expect. A great actor will always surprise you in a take, and then you're like, what? But it just, that surprise is like, oh yeah, that's amazing. Like, you want that surprise. I'm always trying to make that surprise happen.
I love that. Yeah, that's so true. And that's such a good point. I mean, having just worked on, our first comic, which is Reburn, like I think that was the one thing with Allison and I is that we would kind of call each other, like we'd send the script off to Elise McCall, who has been done a wonderful job on our comic and has done, the inks and also done some of the color. And it would come back and we would just be like tears in our eyes because it's like, oh, like and Allison's writing is so great, and then coupled with that, and like you said, like she just Elise would just find things that I still, as I'm looking through our books, having read them a million times now, find new little things
Yeah.
every time. And I think that's the same with filmmaking. Like, it's those surprises that we bring, and people that we collaborate with bring into, the mix that make it all fun and worthwhile.
Yeah, no, I've heard creativity described quite well this way. It's like it has to, creativity, true creativity has to be on the edge of the known and the unknown. So it has to be a surprise, but it has to direct you towards truth. So it has to
Right.
be a surprise that's true, more truer than you expected. And when you get back great art or whatever, that is like drawing the thing you wrote in a truthful way, in a way that honors the story, but in a surprising way. That is like, that's creative. It's same with an actor. A great actor will
Totally.
live at that edge of like the unknown, which is, original actors get in so much trouble in real life because to actually live in that space is hard. It's hard to do and survive, but you need to be able to live in that space to do a great performance in a show.
So speaking of great performances, do you have any pieces of art, like anything that you've been working on that you're like really in love with right now? Like I'm asking you to pick your favorite child.
Uh, I try to look at whatever I'm working on at the moment as my favorite thing, and then let it go, and then try and do it again. So that's how I try to look at it. I
And
try
how
not.
does that, you make it sound so simple. Like, is there, what's your like, how do you do that? Like, I mean, it's a short amount of time, but like,
Yeah.
or do you have any like things that you need as an artist to like get you to that place?
Well, the tools that I use are investigation and execution, really. So if I know I'm gonna, the addiction to making art is like it can happen fast, but the more you kind of look into with or research, you can build up this energy that then wants to get unleashed. So if I'm drawing a fire truck, I don't really know what a fire truck looks like. So collecting images, all you can learn all about the fire trucks. You're kind of building up this energy, and then to execute it, you need to. If you're drawing a fire truck, you need perspective lines. You need to do the mechanics of it, and then you can't forget about like the style, like how you just do it. So it's like inspiration, technique, and execution, both technically and creatively. So, like for instance, the greatest movie poster artist, bring it back to movies, is Drew Struzan, right? That's a general consensus.
Mhm.
Um, but all those movie posters are traced publicity stills. Maybe he's also taking photos of himself. They're also traced. But it's still amazing art because it's not just about tracing a upload. He's adding something that could never happen if he didn't do it. So
Totally.
it's like that's just technique. But then the part that he adds is just from his soul. So that's what you're trying to. That's what you're trying to
Absolutely.
do. So
And
if you can find a way to keep yourself inspired, you can do good work. I think.
so when you're working on, comic projects, a lot of that time is like, solitary. And when you're directing a film or a television series, a lot of that is the complete opposite. So how do you kind of channel that as you go into how do you channel your creative process into like quote the machine where there's a
Yeah.
lot of people around and giving notes and whatnot?
Yeah. Well, that's my favorite parts of doing those two jobs. It's the yin and the yang, because when I'm alone in my studio just drawing, I sometimes like want to interact with people and I
Right.
can't. And then when I'm on set with all these people, I just want to sometimes just be alone, which I can't. So I like jumping back and forth. But what I find is the trick with directing is I do believe that creativity is not a shared activity. So you can create as a team, but always those kernels have to come from one person. Even if you don't write the script, as a director,
Yep.
you have to make sure that the stuff is coming from you, and then you bring it to people, and then we do it together. So the more you can try to, for me, how I do that is I like to draw boards by myself with the script, envision the show, and it always changes. Or if I have a notion, I'd like to be alone to come up with those notions, and then bring them to a team, and then we add and we expand and we execute. But you still need that quiet time. You always have to fight for that quiet time. It's usually in the morning, 5 in the morning,
Yep.
with a coffee, just going over your script. And then if you have big notions in a TV series, I always find the secret is you bring those big notions to the the producers and the writers really early, as early as you can. That first day you hit them with some crazy idea, and they're always going to be like, we can't do that. And then the more you talk about it, the second day, the third day, oh, now we're doing it, and you didn't even have to fight. It's just happening. You just have to plant the seed early, and then it just kind of magically happens. But if you try to do those big things later, like, oh well, I'm going to surprise them with a big thing, like right before we
Right.
shoot, it's never gonna work.
No, it's so true. And I think it's like, using the frame, and it's something that you learn so much. And it's so interesting because, we use storyboards, like you said, and yet, like, even working, like looking at the frames as you're making them, in comics, and then how you translate that. I remember some of the images. My husband, Brad Turner, was also on that show, and we've often talked about you as a director and just how well you use the frame. And I
Okay.
think that's something that is really, gotta, like, it's when all the things are coming together, and certainly you as an artist and bringing that into your directing, it makes something very special.
Well, here's the advantage of drawing comics is you're just constant every day you're telling stories shot by shot. So you're just when I look at a script, I automatically just think shot by shot. And sometimes, um, if you're working with a crew that is not used to a director that thinks that way, sometimes I think they can get lost a little bit if they start questioning if you're not just shooting coverage,
Right.
blanket coverage, start to finish, a wide, medium, and close. I
Yeah.
think maybe a crew that's not experienced more of a shot to, because I do a weird hybrid because that's the best way for time management is to kind of do traditional coverage, but I still think shot by shot. So I build in my shots into the coverage in a weird kind of hybrid way. So I think that if everyone's always on board when the edit is done, but sometimes I think, uh, you people need to trust you a little bit when you're working because maybe it's a bit non-traditional.
Right, right. No, and it's all about time management, right? Like, that's the
Yeah.
thing about, especially when you're working
Yeah.
on a television series,
Oh
like
my
you're
goodness. Yeah.
constantly like going, going, going.
Well,
And same.
the way I break it down now is like I do my time projections per every setup, per every shot, per every break in a big spreadsheet, and that's how I do it now.
I love this. I feel like we also need to do like a film masterclass at some
Well,
point.
I don't know about
That's
a
gonna be
master
our
class.
longer.
I'd call it a the weird class or the tangent parallel class.
I will take that class.
Yeah.
Well, what are you working on right now? Is there anything that you're really excited about that you can share with us?
Well, I just finished a book from Marvel called Amazing Fantasy, and that was a story with
So
World War
good.
II Captain America, Spy School, Black Widow, and Teenage Spider-Man, where they all get sent into basically a Dungeons and Dragons type fantasy island of fantasy. So that I just finished that. I'm doing a whole bunch of covers for various companies, a lot of Marvel covers, DC covers, and then I'm doing a new book that I can't talk about yet, but it will be coming out later this year, I think summer. And
Exciting.
just always juggling. There's some film and TV projects that I'm juggling as well. We'll see what happens next, and just the deal.
Yep.
it's just the it's not a I don't know. It's just the work is the life basically. you know?
Absolutely. You gotta love it. You gotta love it.
Yeah, I always talk about this one David Attenborough life segment where there's these little weird little lizards that they're hopping up this big giant cliff, and there's like they're little tiny things like hop, 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 and as they're hopping up, people they're falling off, and they hop, 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 all the way up to this big giant cliff, and it takes them all day, and half of them fall off, never make it. The ones that get to the top, as soon as they get to the top, they jump back down into the bottom, and they do it again. And I think that's
That's
just, you know,
that's
you
us.
gotta you gotta find, you gotta enjoy the climb, because that is what it's all.
That's
It
right.
is the climb. That's what you'll remember.
Well, thank you so much for being so supportive of Reburn, and I can't wait to see what you have coming up, and I can't wait to work with you again in the future.
Yeah, well, I can't wait to see more Reburn. I think it's a really cool project, and if
Thank
anyone's
you.
watching that hasn't checked it out, go check it out. It's really cool. This is the true spirit of creativity, all wrapped up and exploding into your eyes, and I think I can't wait to see it all collected into a trade one day, and you know.
Thank you. That's our, we've got a Kickstarter coming up at the end of the month, and then yeah, next stop is the trade. So I'm sure I'll be calling for more advice.
That's awesome. And let's do a long form one next time.
Yes, next time we definitely have to do that. And a film one, a comic one, it might be a whole series.
Or the whole we'll do a 12 part
Oh,
podcast
sounds
series.
good.
All right, Jessica.
Cool. Well, have a great afternoon. Thanks again.
Okay, great. Good talking. Bye.
Bye.